flash, and you want to pair the best position player with the best pitcher, and you get the new face of your franchise, well, go ahead and start the bidding at $80 million a year.
I mean, it is high-stakes poker, because guess what happens if you put him on the injured list? You have $80 million plus
That's true.
On the injured list. So, I mean, but he is a unique player. He's a very unique player. So, that to me...
He's also 29 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you need to stack him right on top, but to me, are you telling me that if you came out with a 10-year, $750 million offer for Shohei Ohtani, that you would get outbid? I don't believe that. I just don't believe anybody's going to offer more than that. I mean, think about what that would do to the structure of the game. You're talking about, you're now making a guy, I mean, usually you see the AAV go up by $3 million, $5 million, $7 million. Now you're going to have it go up by, what'd you say? Who's the highest paid guy in the game?
Max Scherzer, $43 million.
So you're going to have it go up by in your case, $40 million.
It'd be unprecedented. It would be something that we haven't seen before.
It's an unprecedented talent.
Exactly. And he's a player we haven't seen before.
I mean, okay, let's talk about it intelligently, business-wise. There is not a bad deal for Shohei Ohtani when you factor in the merchandising, the marketing, what it does to their ratings, radio, television, just merchandising on a global level. There's also, and I've heard this one a couple times, I don't know if you have, but I've heard that you can mark off Seattle, that he wants to be, like, he wants to make his mark as the most dominant Japanese player in that market, and that, Ichiro's already commandeered the Seattle market. So I didn't, I don't know Shohei, so I have no idea what makes him tick or what is really vitally important to him, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So the Giants had Masanori Murakami. I believe he was the first Japanese-born player to ever pitch in the big league. So they have history there going back to the 60s. But Shohei would clearly be he would be the biggest star, the biggest Japanese star this franchise has ever seen. It would be, I don't think you can make a bad deal from a financial standpoint unless the player, got hurt and was, you didn't have use of the player and you've got that kind of money just sitting on the sidelines. If he's a healthy player, even a relatively healthy player, I don't know that you can make a bad deal, because think about what their season ticket base is at. They were at 30,000, I believe, at their high point. I think they're at like 6 or 8 right now. The Giants' season ticket base has evaporated before our eyes. If they want to rebuild that thing closer to 25 or 30,000, this is the guy in front of Judge, in front of Stanton, in front of Harper, in front of Soto. I mean, Shohei is the guy that transcends the game and would put butts in the seats.
And would put the Giants back on the map in a way that they've been asking for since Buster Posey retired, even maybe before that. I mean, I know 2021 was a miraculous season, but I don't know if anybody saw that coming. The expectations would return to the Giants to be back in a place that they were in the middle 2010s, and that was competing for World Series titles. If they acquire Shohei Ohtani at the deadline, again, no matter what it cost, to me that also catapults them into the conversation because of something that you were talking about during the commercial break. And I know that you spoke with Farhan Zaidi on this very station with Mark Willard, talking about how he thinks in terms of postseason series, who's going to be your number one, how your lineup's going to look against the best of the best. And right now, outside of the Atlanta Braves, I don't think that there's a team that I wouldn't say that the Giants couldn't beat. With Shohei Ohtani, that might get them into that category because you have your number one starter, you have a cleanup hitter or third hitter, however you choose to deploy him. It takes an immense amount of pressure off your lineup. And again, from an average offense, they immediately, in my mind, become a top 10 offense. Their pitching staff gets only better. They've been top 5 in the NL all season long, even without a consistent cast in the rotation. Shohei Ohtani's played 155 games as a position player the last 2 seasons. He's made at least 23, 25 starts each of the last 2 years. There's no reason in my mind that he can't not only remain healthy this year, but do it in the near future moving forward. Years be damned down the line. An albatross contract is the only way I think a team is going to acquire Shohei Ohtani's services. And so why not try and blow him out of the water with some ridiculous money that we've never heard of before?
I see the reasoning. You've got to do something. The old no pain, no gain. You're not going to, get a player like this without considerable pain. That pain may come in the form of dollars, AAV. It may come in the form of prospects. But you're not going to – this is the most coveted player in the game, in his prime, and the most coveted gate attraction in a sport that has none. That's the other thing. If you don't get Shohei, what's plan B? Let's talk about that for a second. Who puts butts in the seats?
Yeah.
There is no plan B. There is no plan B as far as merchandising. Nobody who means the kind of value that he could potentially mean to your franchise. Would you pause if you felt like – you know what, maybe there's not long-term durability as a pitcher? What if you're going to pay this guy as a two-way player and he's somewhere in the length and the duration of the contract became not a two-way player, just a one-way player? Maybe he can't pitch after a certain point, but he can hit. Does that matter to you? Is he still worth it? I mean, he's still the same person, right? I mean, when people are buying a jersey or buying tickets, are they sitting there going, I need to see both Shohei as a pitcher and as a hitter? Or are they just going, wow, this is a once-in-a-generation player, and I just need to see him? So then, I'm not sure what the impact is, but I like the idea of being bold. I mean, that's how the Giants got here. But here, let's also not forget the point that the Giants didn't win a World Series with their last big bonanza transcendent player in Barry Bonds. They didn't. They did not win a World Series.
Got a game away.
Now, was that a successful run? I will say this. I think the park down the street is the house that Bonds built. I don't think that park gets built if the Giants aren't a viable contending team in the second half of the 1990s. So you can credit Sabes and Coletti and the ownership all you want, but those people were buying tickets to watch Barry freaking Bonds. So, he put butts in the seats, and it was a financial success. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was a on-field success because they never got that title, and they got 3 when he was gone. But as far as a financial investment, man, it was a home run, and I think it would also be a home run here. The question is, would they win? Would they win with Shohei? But I did think it was interesting that you brought up Farhan, because when Willard and I asked him, what are you looking for to improve the team at the deadline? He immediately went into a discussion about the playoffs, and that he oftentimes looks at, okay, if the playoffs were today, who's our game one starter? And that's kind of his view of the world. Well, and the Giants clearly now 2 years in a row now, we've seen Reggie Crawford and the guy they just drafted the other day,
Bryce Eldridge.
Yeah, Bryce Eldridge. Both two-way players. The Giants are kind of on the cutting edge of the two-way, player movement, more so than any other team. Maybe the idea or the possibility of putting Shohei as a game one starter in this year's playoffs, maybe that's enough for them to take a big risk. Because let's be honest, if they trade prospects and a bunch of them, they're dangling. And suddenly it's like, in some ways you could force yourself to bid more money because you traded a big prospect haul to get this guy. And I don't know that you want to hurt your own leverage and cost yourself prospects. You see what I'm saying? If you trade Marco Luciano, Carson Wisenhunt, and Reggie Crawford to the Angels, now it's like, okay, way to go, Giants. You got Shohei. The fans are excited. You go to the playoffs. But guess what? Everybody's saying the same take. You sure as hell better sign Shohei. And then you've upped the ante and upped the pressure on yourself to retain the player. So do they want to put themselves in that position? It would be gutsy, man. It would be gutsy. And to me, it I like seeing guts in my in my executives, but that would be gutsy by Farhan. It would be an all-in kind of a maneuver.
It would be, and it's the sniper scope that the San Francisco Giants haven't necessarily put on themselves. And I understand the reason for apprehension. Look, a lot of people argue, hey, look, Ohtani's the greatest player we've ever seen in baseball. How come he can't get to the playoffs by himself in Anaheim with Mike Trout from the 415, $75 million invested in any one player is a bad investment. You can frame it how you want. The risk greatly outweighs the reward. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a risk. We're talking about arguably the biggest risk in franchise history if you threw that kind of money at him.